On a dark night, a group of residents is trapped in the elevator of an old building where everyone believes a guardian spirit watches over them. 6-year-old Emmy steps onto the red staircase, a place marked by the tragic past of a lost child and her loyal dog. When the elevator stops, chaos begins, and the little girl realizes she is not alone. Behind every shadow, a divine force silently protects them. Will they escape the eerie threat looming over them? Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more thrilling episodes from us. The dim light of the San Diego afternoon stretched long shadows across the cracked concrete and peeling paint of the old apartment complex. This was not just any building, it was a weathered relic from a forgotten era, its walls soaked with whispers of past lives and unseen presences. But the heart of its mystery lay in a narrow, dimly lit stairwell, the place residents called the Red Staircase. Not because of fresh paint or bold color, but because of the deep, unspoken stories that stained it like old blood tales of fear loss and protection. The stairwell connected every floor but was oddly avoided by many tenants who preferred the creaking, unreliable elevator that lurked silently in its metal cage. Yet for 6-year-old Emmy, this staircase was not just a passage. It was a sanctuary, a place where courage bloomed amid shadows. Emmy was a slender, bright-eyed girl with an aura that seemed too mature for her age. Living on the 5th floor, far above the bustling street noise and the dim lobby, most would expect her to rely on the elevator, especially in a building where every flight of stairs creaked underfoot, and the air smelled faintly of dust and neglect. But Emmy always chose the stairs. Her small feet padded carefully along each step, as if the red stairwell whispered to her in a secret language only she could understand. When asked why she never used the elevator, her voice calm and unwavering delivered the chilling yet innocent verdict. The white dog doesn't ride the elevator. It's scared. That simple sentence planted a seed of unease in her mother's mind, stirring an uncomfortable curiosity that would soon ripple through the whole building. Her mother, Linda, was a practical woman, a nurse by profession who tried to reason gently with Emmy, urging her to trust the elevator, especially on days when the heavy fog made climbing the stairs seem like a daunting task for a little girl. But fate seemed to side with the child's fears. Within just a week, the elevator malfunctioned twice. The first time it stuck between floors for nearly half an hour, causing panic among the trapped tenants. An elderly man fainted from the ordeal, his life hanging by a fragile thread until help arrived. The second incident was no less terrifying this time, accompanied by eerie sounds, metal groaning, and faint scratching noises that sent shivers down the spines of those waiting outside. The elevator's malfunction wasn't dismissed as coincidence anymore. Whispers of a darker presence began to spread. Security cameras set up in the hallway outside the elevator captured footage that defied explanation. At first glance, the grainy black and white recordings looked typical: empty corridors, flickering lights, the slow rotation of the elevator doors. But then in fleeting frames, a blurred silhouette appeared: a dog. Not just any dog, but a white figure standing silently by the elevator's entrance. The shape lingered for a few seconds, staring as if guarding or waiting before fading into thin air. The tenants shared the footage in hushed tones, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. Some dismissed it as a trick of the light, others swore they'd seen the same apparition themselves. One of the most vocal voices belonged to Mrs. Agnes. Agnes, the elderly neighbor who had lived in the building for decades. She was a small woman, her frail hands forever clutching a worn handbag, her face a roadmap of years filled with stories. Her voice trembled slightly as she recounted a tragic tale to anyone who would listen. Many years ago, she began her gaze distant and haunted. There was a little girl about Emmy's age who lived on the top floor. One day, the elevator fell while she was inside. They say her loyal dog tried to pull her out, but it was too late. The girl didn't survive. Her words hung heavy in the stale air, sinking into the hearts of her listeners. Since then, that dog's spirit watches over this place, especially around the elevator. The story seemed like a ghost story told to frighten children. Yet the atmosphere around the red staircase thickened with a solemn reverence. Emmy herself appeared different. She named the dog Luna, a name whispered in awe and warmth, as if invoking a guardian angel. One afternoon, armed with crayons and paper, Emmy sat on the stairs and poured her heart into a large drawing, a white dog standing proudly beside the elevator doors, bathed in a soft glow. The picture was more than just art. It was a symbol of hope and protection. Her mother, touched by the innocence and depth behind the image, decided to hang it at the entrance of the stairwell, where every person passing through would pause, their heads bowing in silent respect. In the flickering glow of the stairwell's old light bulbs, as shadows danced across the walls, the red staircase transformed from a place of fear into a space of quiet sanctuary. Residents began to whisper that it was not just the worn steps that kept them safe, but the unseen presence of Luna, an eternal guardian watching over their lives. And for Emmy, this staircase was no longer just a route to her apartment. It was a bridge between worlds, a place where courage met the supernatural, and where a little girl's faith kindled a beacon of light amid the darkness. As the camera slowly pans away from Emmy's drawing, focusing on the soft edges of Luna's image, glowing faintly in the dim hallway, the scene fades with a lingering feeling of suspense mixed with warmth, an invitation for the audience to journey deeper into the mysteries of the red staircase, where every step carries a story waiting to be told. The days that followed were thick with an uneasy energy, as if the very walls of the old San Diego apartment complex began to pulse with unseen life. Emmy, the little girl who had first spoken of the white dog named Luna, started to share her story more openly, first with her mother, then with her closest friends, and eventually with neighbors who lingered long enough by the stairwell to hear her quiet words. Her voice carried a strange conviction that was impossible to dismiss. "Luna watches over us," she would say, eyes wide and unblinking. "She's here when the elevator breaks. She keeps us safe." Those words, simple yet profound, began to seep into the collective consciousness of the community, awakening a belief that the legend was more than just a childhood fancy. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the horizon, casting long, wavering shadows down the cracked stairwell walls, the security cameras installed outside the elevator caught something extraordinary again. The grainy footage showed a fleeting figure, the ghostly outline of a white dog standing silently just beyond the elevator doors. The apparition didn't move yet. It seemed to watch, waiting patiently, as the dull hum of the elevator's machinery faltered and then fell silent. Residents huddled around small screens, replaying the footage frame by frame, their faces a mix of wonder and fear. Some whispered that it was a trick of light, but many others, particularly those who had experienced the elevator's eerie malfunctions firsthand, found themselves unable to deny the presence. The strange happenings did not stop at mere sightings. The elevator's lights began to flicker erratically, plunging the hallway into brief anxious darkness before glowing weakly again. Metallic creaks and faint scratching noises echoed through the shaft sounds that had no logical source. Sometimes the elevator doors would open and close of their own accord, as if responding to an unseen command. People walking past the red staircase would suddenly feel chills down their spines or catch a whiff of an unfamiliar scent, something like fresh rain mixed with a hint of lavender. The apartment complex seemed alive with a presence that both unsettled and protected. Emmy herself was often seen pausing on the stairs, her gaze distant yet serene, as if communicating silently with Luna. The little girl no longer feared the staircase or the elevator. Instead, she radiated a quiet confidence, a sense that she was not alone. In moments of uncertainty or fright, when a sudden creak made her jump or the elevator shuddered, she would close her eyes, take a deep breath, and whisper Luna's here. It was as if the invisible companion wrapped her in a protective embrace, calming her nerves and giving her strength. Her mother, Linda, watched this transformation with a mix of skepticism and awe. At first, she chalked it up to a child's imagination, a coping mechanism for the strange occurrences around them. But as the days passed and neighbors began sharing similar experiences, brief glimpses of white shapes, inexplicable cold drafts, or feelings of unseen eyes watching over them, Linda found herself confronting a truth she couldn't easily dismiss. The building, once just a dilapidated home, was now a vessel for something far beyond ordinary understanding. The community started to come together, drawn by the shared mystery. In small clusters near the stairwell, residents exchanged stories of inexplicable events, lights flickering, just before a tenant's fall was narrowly avoided. Sudden gusts of wind in windowless hallways, or the inexplicable feeling of being gently guided when walking down the stairs in the dark. Some had even reported hearing soft paw steps echoing alongside theirs, though no animals were ever seen. The presence of Luna the white guardian dog was becoming a quiet but powerful symbol of safety. Among these voices, Mrs. Agnes, the elderly neighbor, whose memory stretched back decades, became a keeper of history and lore. She gathered the younger tenants in her modest apartment, dimly lit by a single lamp, and shared the deeper, often painful story behind the apartment complex and its spectral guardian. This building, she said, voice thick with emotion, has known loss and sorrow. Long ago, a tragedy tore through these halls when a young girl was lost in the elevator's fall. Her dog, pure and loyal, tried to save her, but was powerless against fate. Since then, Luna's spirit has lingered, watching, protecting, reminding us of love's strength, even in death. Her words stirred something profound in those who listened. The story wasn't just about fear or hauntings. It was a testament to the enduring bond between human and animal, a connection that transcended life itself. For many, the red staircase became more than a path or a legend. It was a shrine of remembrance, a place where memories lived and protection lingered in the silence. As the days rolled into nights, the community's respect for Luna grew. Emmy's drawing, now prominently displayed near the stairwell, was often touched reverently by passers-by. Mothers whispered the dog's name to their children as a comfort. Tenants paused to nod in silent gratitude before climbing the worn steps. The presence of Luna, though unseen, was felt as a warm reassurance, a steady heartbeat beneath the building's aged bones. Yet with this growing belief came an undeniable tension. Some tenants remained skeptical, unwilling to surrender reason to legend. They questioned the stories, dismissed the sightings as tricks of light or collective imagination fueled by fear. This undercurrent of doubt simmered quietly, foreshadowing the inevitable clash between belief and skepticism that would test the fragile harmony of the community. But for now, in these early days, the presence of Luna was a whispered secret. Among those willing to listen, a ghostly guardian that watched silently over a little girl and the red staircase she had chosen as her path. And as Emmy climbed each step, hand lightly brushing the chipped banister she carried with her, not only the courage of childhood, but the strength of a bond that no darkness could sever. The arrival of new tenants brought an unsettling shift in the quiet rhythms of the old San Diego apartment complex. Among the seasoned residents who had grown accustomed to the subtle presence of Luna and the unspoken respect for the red staircase, these newcomers carried skepticism like a shield. They saw the stories of the white dog and the supernatural guardian as nothing more than old wives' tales, relics of fear designed to keep the building's tenants wary and cautious. A young couple, the Martins, moved into the third floor, laughing off warnings about the elevator and Luna's supposed protection. Their sharp suits and brisk demeanor marked them as outsiders who trusted technology over superstition. The Martins were soon joined by others, filling the hallways with voices that questioned, doubted, and dismissed the haunting tales that had become part of the building's identity. One evening, despite the clear unease among some tenants, the Martins decided to test the elevator's limits. They pressed the button with a dismissive chuckle and stepped inside, ignoring the flickering warning lights. As the doors slid shut, a collective hush fell on the hallway outside. The elevator jolted, shuddered violently, and then ground to a halt between floors. Panic rippled through the crowd as the lights inside the elevator dimmed, casting eerie shadows on the faces pressed against the metal walls. Someone screamed. The elevator bell rang incessantly. Emergency calls went unanswered for agonizing minutes. When the doors finally creaked open, the Martins emerged pale and shaken, their confidence shattered. The building was gripped by renewed fear and whispered speculation. Luna was warning them again, but not everyone was convinced. Among the skeptics was Harold, the building's new property manager. A pragmatic man in his 50s, Harold had little patience for ghost stories. To him, the elevator's malfunctions were simple mechanical failures, nothing more. He saw the residents' reverence for Luna as a distraction and perhaps even a danger. Determined to restore order and logic, Harold made a decision that would ignite conflict. He ordered the removal of Emmy's large drawing of Luna from the stairwell, believing that dispelling superstition was key to calming the building. The painting, once a silent guardian, was taken down under cover of night. Almost immediately, the building's atmosphere shifted. The elevator's malfunctions worsened. Lights flickered uncontrollably. Strange noises grew louder, echoing through the hallways with an urgent intensity. The residents, particularly the older tenants, whispered of Luna's anger, warning that removing the symbol was disrespectful. Emmy and her mother Linda were devastated by the disappearance of the painting. For Emmy, Luna was more than a ghost story. She was a friend, a protector. The erasure of her image felt like an attack on the very safety she had come to rely on. Linda confronted Harold, their voices clashing in heated debate in the lobby. "You can't just erase what this building needs to feel safe," Linda said, her eyes fierce. "This isn't just a picture. It's hope. It's protection," Harold retorted. "Hope won't fix a broken elevator, and protection doesn't come from shadows. This is nonsense, and it's tearing the community apart." The conflict spilled over into the hallways and stairwells, dividing neighbors into camps of believers and skeptics. The tension was palpable, thickening the air with every whispered argument and pointed glare. Emmy found herself caught in the middle, her childhood innocence threatened by the adults' growing hostility. In a moment of resolve, Linda began searching through the building's dusty archives. What she found was a worn, leather-bound journal forgotten beneath layers of neglect in a storage room. The fragile pages held a haunting account, letters and diary entries from the family of the girl who had perished decades ago in the elevator accident. Each word bled grief and love, describing a bond so deep between the girl and her dog that even death could not sever it. The entries told of the girl's fear of the elevator, her dog's loyal presence, and the tragic day the elevator fell. The dog's desperate attempts to save her were immortalized in the sorrowful words, painting a picture of unwavering devotion that resonated deeply with Linda. The past was no longer a distant memory, but a living force that explained the mystery of Luna and the red staircase. As Linda shared these findings with Emmy and the neighbors, the building felt the stirrings of healing. The line between fear and understanding began to blur, opening a path toward reconciliation, though the journey was far from over. The revelation of the old journal sent ripples through the apartment complex, stirring emotions long buried beneath years of fear and silence. Linda held the fragile pages in her hands, reading aloud the heartfelt words that chronicled a story eerily mirroring their present fears and hopes. The tenants gathered in the dimly lit lobby, their faces drawn with exhaustion and the weight of unspoken sorrows, as the narrative of the lost girl and her loyal dog began to dissolve the walls of skepticism that divided them. Emmy listened intently, clutching her mother's hand, eyes shining with a mixture of grief and newfound courage. The story validated everything she had felt: the presence of Luna, the power of protection, the thin veil between life and afterlife in their humble home. No longer just a child's tale, Luna's existence became a symbol of resilience and love that transcended time. But not everyone welcomed this newfound understanding. Harold, the property manager, remained cold and resolute, dismissing the emotions as dangerous delusions that threatened the building's safety and rationality. He argued that clinging to ghost stories prevented practical solutions, that fear, real or imagined, was destabilizing the community. His rigid stance fueled further division, igniting fierce debates that echoed through the halls. Tensions reached a boiling point when Harold attempted to repair the elevator again, this time with contractors who dismissed any supernatural concerns outright. The repairs were hurried and impersonal, the machinery rattling under stress. Residents watched anxiously, their faith in technology battling against the unseen forces they believed still lingered. On the night of the repair, as the workers sealed the elevator shaft and left, strange events escalated. The building trembled subtly. Lights flickered violently, and the silence was broken by distant, mournful howls that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The tenants huddled together, a fragile unity forming amid fear and hope. Emmy, standing at the center, whispered softly to Luna, drawing strength from the invisible presence. Amidst this turmoil, Linda discovered more relics, old letters tucked inside the journal written by the girl's mother. They spoke of grief of fighting against loss and of a promise that the dog's spirit would guard all who walked the stairs. The letters urged the living to remember to honor the past through acts of compassion and belief. This deepened the emotional undercurrent among the residents. Skepticism began to falter as even the harshest doubters felt the undeniable pull of history and heart. The red staircase was no longer just a path between floors, it was a sacred ground, where memories lived, where protection was not just mechanical, but spiritual. Emmy and Linda took the lead in rallying the community, organizing gatherings, where stories were shared, fears aired, and hope nurtured. They proposed restoring the painting of Luna to its rightful place, insisting it was essential not only for honoring the past, but for healing the present. Their efforts culminated in a charged confrontation with Harold. Voices raised and emotions raw. The clash became a microcosm of a larger battle, the fight between reason and faith, past and present, fear and love. Emmy's quiet strength stood as a beacon amid the storm, reminding everyone that sometimes belief itself could be the greatest power. As the scene draws to a close, the building holds its breath, caught between darkness and light. Doubt and trust, ready for the next chapter, where truth and healing must find their place. The soft hum of the apartment building carried a new kind of energy, one born not from fear or skepticism, but from something far deeper, hope. Emmy, now more certain than ever, felt an unbreakable bond with Luna the white dog, whose presence transcended the physical and touched the very soul of the old San Diego complex. She no longer saw Luna as a mere ghost or shadow, but as a guardian spirit, a protector woven into the fabric of the building itself. One quiet afternoon, Emmy sat on the worn steps of the red staircase, her small hands tracing the chipped paint and cracked concrete as she whispered softly, "Luna, are you here?" The air around her seemed to shift, a subtle warmth enveloping her, and a faint brush of wind whispered through the stairwell. It was a feeling she had come to recognize, a silent answer from Luna, reassuring and steadfast. These moments grew more frequent. Emmy began experiencing vivid signs that went beyond mere sightings, the faintest touch on her shoulder, when she felt afraid soft paw prints appearing and disappearing on dusty floors, and the distant echo of a bark that brought comfort rather than alarm. She learned to read the invisible cues, a gentle breeze signaling Luna's presence, a sudden calmness in a chaotic moment. Communication between them unfolded in a language of emotion and intuition, a silent conversation that needed no words. But Emmy was not alone. Other tenants, especially those who had endured the elevator's mysterious malfunctions, began to report their own encounters. Mrs. Agnes, the elderly neighbor, described feeling a protective aura when descending the stairs alone at night, a sensation that soothed her trembling heart. Mr. Collins, a middle-aged man who once feared the elevator, spoke of an inexplicable calm that washed over him during a recent power outage, as if an unseen guardian stood beside him. These shared experiences began to weave a collective narrative, one where Luna's spirit was not just an isolated phenomenon, but a unifying presence, binding the residents together. The red staircase evolved from a place of fear and avoidance into a symbol of safety and solidarity. It became a sacred passage where footsteps echoed, with the whispers of past and present, human and spirit intertwined. In quiet moments within her apartment, Emmy would gather with her mother, Linda, and Mrs. Agnes. They shared stories, laughter, and sometimes tears, bridging generations through the shared belief in Luna's watchful eyes. The warmth of their connection was palpable, a healing balm for wounds that spanned decades. Together they spoke of Luna not as a ghost to be feared, but as a manifestation of love's enduring power. Linda marveled at her daughter's resilience and growing understanding. "You see Luna in ways I can't," she confessed one evening as they sat by the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. "But I feel her too in my heart." Their bond deepened, strengthened by the unseen threads that connected them to Luna and to each other. The community, once fractured by doubt, now embraced a newfound respect. Tenants paused to acknowledge the red staircase with quiet nods or small gestures of gratitude. Some began leaving simple offerings, a bowl of water, a fresh flower, tokens of appreciation to the spirit they believed guarded them. The atmosphere shifted, infused with an aura of reverence and hope. Through it all, Emmy remained the heart of this transformation. Her faith illuminated the darkness, a beacon guiding others toward acceptance and peace. Luna's presence was no longer a source of fear, but a wellspring of healing, a reminder that even in places marked by tragedy, love could flourish and protect. As twilight descended over the city, the red staircase glowed softly in the fading light, a silent testament to the invisible guardian who watched over every step. The bond between Emmy Luna and the community stood unbroken, a powerful connection bridging worlds, time, and hearts. As the days slipped into weeks, the presence of Luna became woven into the daily lives of the residents like an unspoken promise. The building itself seemed to breathe with a gentle rhythm, a pulse that matched the heartbeat of the unseen guardian watching over them all. Emmy's connection to Luna deepened with each passing moment, no longer confined to whispered prayers or fleeting sensations, but blossoming into a vivid communion of spirit and emotion. One late afternoon, Emmy found herself standing at the top of the red staircase, gazing down the worn steps bathed in golden sunlight, filtering through the cracked windows. The world below was filled with the noise of lives, unfolding distant voices. Footsteps echoing the hum of city life, yet up here in this sacred space, everything felt hushed and profound. She closed her eyes and reached out with her heart, feeling the invisible thread that bound her to Luna. Suddenly the air shifted. A cool breeze fragrant with hints of jasmine and fresh rain swept through the stairwell. Emmy's eyes fluttered open, just in time to see a soft, glowing figure at the bottom of the steps, Luna. Not a ghostly apparition, but a warm, shimmering presence radiating kindness and strength. Emmy smiled, tears welling in her eyes, and whispered, "Thank you, Luna." Word of Emmy's experience spread quickly, transforming the way the community saw the red staircase. It was no longer a passage to be feared or a relic of sorrow, but a living symbol of protection and love. Residents began to gather there, sharing stories, lighting candles, and simply sitting in the presence of Luna's spirit. The shared rituals fostered healing that transcended generations, bridging gaps between old neighbors and new tenants alike. Mrs. Agnes, once burdened by grief and loneliness, found solace in the renewed life of the building. She recounted tales of Luna's courage and loyalty, reminding everyone that sometimes the greatest strength is found in the quietest places. Linda, too, felt a profound change, her skepticism replaced by a deep sense of peace and purpose. The walls of doubt crumbled, replaced by a collective faith that lifted the entire community. The healing energy of Luna's presence touched even the most hardened hearts. Conflicts that once divided the tenants softened, replaced by moments of understanding and compassion. Neighbors who barely spoke before now exchanged smiles and kind words, united by a shared belief in something greater than themselves. Emmy's story became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in darkness there is light. Even in loss there is love. And even in fear there is courage. The red staircase stood as a testament to the enduring bond between humans and the spirits that watch over them, a symbol of protection that transcended the ordinary and touched the sacred. As night fell, the stairwell glowed softly under the moonlight, Luna's presence a comforting sentinel in the shadow. Emmy, standing at the top, felt a profound gratitude for the past, for the present, and for the promise of a future watched over by a loyal guardian's love. The atmosphere inside the aging apartment complex thickened with a tangible tension, one that crackled with an ominous electricity as the elevator groaned beneath the weight of its occupants. That evening began like any other, the soft hum of distant city life filtering through cracked windows. But it quickly spiraled into a nightmare that would test the courage and resolve of every resident. A group of tenants, returning from work and errands, piled into the elevator, laughter and casual conversation filling the cramped space. Among them were the Martins, still skeptical, their faces pale but defiant. As the elevator doors slid shut, the familiar hum of the machinery sounded unusually strained. Without warning, the elevator lurched violently and shuddered to a sudden halt, trapping them between floors. Panic ignited immediately. The confined space, the flickering overhead lights, and the sudden silence outside turned the elevator into a prison. Voices rose in fear, questions bounced off metal walls, and hands trembled as people frantically pressed the emergency button. Outside, footsteps quickened as neighbors rushed to the scene, their faces etched with dread. Emmy, standing on the stairwell landing, felt her heart pound fiercely. She knew somehow that Luna was near. The invisible guardian's presence thrummed through the air, subtle but undeniable. She scanned the shadows for signs, searching for the faintest hint of guidance in the flickering light. Suddenly, a cool breeze swept past her, carrying a soft scent of jasmine. Emmy's breath caught as she noticed a shimmering outline near the elevator doors, Luna's form glowing softly like a beacon in the dark. With newfound determination, Emmy called out to the trapped tenants, relaying whispered instructions and offering comfort, her voice steady despite the chaos. Other residents joined Emmy, forming a desperate rescue party. Guided by Luna's unseen hand, they worked together, some searching for tools, others calming panicked voices, all moving in sync with the silent rhythm that Luna orchestrated. The old building echoed with a symphony of urgency and hope. Yet amid this unity, the divide between believers and skeptics grew sharper. Harold, the property manager, insisted on dismissing the supernatural claims, focusing solely on mechanical fixes and logistics. His frustration boiled over into heated arguments with Linda and other residents who trusted in Luna's presence. Tensions spilled over into clashes in the narrow hallways and the iconic red staircase. Voices were raised, accusations hurled, and tempers flared as fear and desperation clouded reason. Emmy found herself caught in the storm, struggling to balance her faith with the mounting chaos around her. As the crisis deepened, strange occurrences intensified. Flickering lights cast eerie shadows that seemed to shift and move with a will of their own. The faint sound of paws echoed on the stairs, growing louder in moments of danger and fading into silence when hope blossomed. The building itself seemed alive, a battleground between the tangible and the unseen. In the eye of this storm, Emmy's connection with Luna strengthened beyond anything she had experienced. In moments of doubt and fear, she closed her eyes and felt a surge of warmth and courage flow through her veins. Luna's spirit infused her with a fierce determination to protect and guide, inspiring those around her to stand firm against the darkness. The rescue effort became a race against time. The elevator's ancient mechanisms creaked ominously, threatening to fail entirely. Every second counted as the trapped tenants clung to hope, listening for the faintest sound of approaching help. Outside, the community rallied, their faith and resolve intertwining with Luna's ethereal power. The hallways and stairwells transformed into a labyrinth of shadows, and light echoing with footsteps, whispers, and the rising crescendo of human will. Emmy led the way, her small frame moving swiftly and purposefully, her eyes blazing with the fire of belief. As the first responders arrived, guided by the residents' frantic calls, the atmosphere shifted from chaos to cautious optimism. The elevator doors finally creaked open, revealing faces pale but alive, smiles, trembling with relief and gratitude. The aftermath of the ordeal left the building forever changed. Fear had not been vanquished entirely, but it had been tempered by courage and connection. The red staircase stood not only as a passage between floors, but as a symbol of resilience, unity, and the mysterious forces that watch over us in our darkest moments. The building had barely begun to settle when the aftershocks of the elevator incident reverberated through its halls. The residents, having just witnessed the tangible reality of what they'd feared, were left grappling with a mix of relief and confusion. Yet among the chaos, a dark cloud hung over the entire apartment complex. The supernatural had not only asserted its presence, but had shown that it could not be ignored. For a brief moment, the sense of unity that had flourished in the wake of the elevator's rescue was clouded by the lingering tension between those who now believed and those who stubbornly clung to their skepticism. Conversations in the hallways were hushed but pointed, people who had once dismissed the stories of Luna, now exchanging knowing glances. But even with this shift in perception, the fractures within the building were still evident. A clash was inevitable. Emmy, feeling the weight of both fear and responsibility, couldn't escape the feeling that Luna's role in the incident had been far more than just a guide. She had protected them, yes, but the lingering uncertainty and fear told her that Luna's task was not complete. The fight was far from over. The elevator had malfunctioned before, but this time it had been more than a mechanical failure. It had been a warning. Late one night, as Emmy sat in her room, a soft knock on her door pulled her from her thoughts. It was Linda, her face etched with concern. "Emmy, I think we need to talk." The two sat together, and Linda hesitated before speaking. "Emmy, I know you've always believed in Luna, and I've seen things too. Things I can't explain, but I'm worried. What if Luna's presence means that something worse is coming? What if this is just the beginning?" Emmy's eyes widened, a sense of dread rising in her chest. "You mean, like more accidents?" Linda nodded gravely. "We've been lucky so far. But the elevator, what if something bigger is coming? The way the building shook the shadows we saw. There's something dangerous here, Emmy. And I think Luna might be trying to warn us." As Linda spoke, Emmy felt a cold shiver run through her. The thought that Luna's presence might not just be a safeguard, but a precursor to something more sinister, unsettled her in ways she couldn't fully express. But there was one thing she knew for certain: if Luna was warning them, it wasn't just for their protection, it was for their survival. That night, Emmy couldn't sleep. Her thoughts raced as shadows danced in her room, the soft rustle of leaves outside adding to the unsettling quiet. As she lay there trying to push away the fear, a sudden sensation overtook her. It was the same feeling she'd had before Luna was near. She bolted upright eyes, scanning the room, and there in the corner was a faint, glowing outline of the white dog. Luna stood watching, her form barely visible, but emanating an unmistakable warmth that filled the room. Emmy's heart swelled with a mixture of awe and unease. Luna wasn't just a comforting presence anymore. She was something more, a sentinel standing between them and a growing darkness. The air in the room thickened, and with it Emmy felt Luna's presence draw closer. The dog's form grew clearer, and in that moment, Emmy understood Luna wasn't just a protector. She was a harbinger, a force meant to guide them through the coming storm. The next morning, the building was still reeling from the events of the night before. Whispers filled the air as residents avoided the elevator, taking the stairs in quiet solemnity. It was as though the building itself held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The red staircase had taken on a new significance. No longer just a pathway between floors, it had become the battleground between light and dark, the final line of defense. Emmy felt an intense pull to the stairs. She needed to be there to connect with Luna and understand what was to come. As she ascended the steps, her footsteps echoing in the silence, she could feel the air change. The familiar sense of safety that had once enveloped her now felt fragile. The sense of protection that Luna had offered was still there, but it was mixed with an unspoken urgency. As she reached the top of the stairs, Emmy felt a deep, bone-chilling shiver run down her spine. The space in front of her seemed to stretch into an abyss of darkness, and for the first time, she realized the true weight of what Luna was guarding against. It wasn't just the mechanical failure of the elevator or the threat of harm. It was something far darker. Something that had been lurking in the shadows for far longer than any of them could have imagined. Suddenly, a piercing sound broke the silence. It was faint at first, but grew louder, the unmistakable sound of an elevator descending at an unnatural speed. The ground beneath her feet trembled, and the building seemed to groan in protest. Emmy's breath caught in her throat. She turned instinctively, looking for Luna, and there she was, glowing softly in the corner of the stairwell, a steadying presence in the midst of chaos. The elevator's descent continued, the sound growing louder, reverberating throughout the building. Then, with a loud crash, the elevator doors slammed open at the ground floor, and a strange, unsettling stillness filled the air. The lights flickered once more, and the building seemed to hold its breath. Emmy's heart raced as she rushed down the stairs, driven by an unexplainable force, following the echoes of Luna's presence, feeling her guidance as if it were woven into her very steps. She rounded the corner just in time to see the elevator doors swing wide open, revealing an empty, darkened interior. No one was inside yet. The air around it hummed with a malevolent energy, as if something or someone had been waiting for this moment. With a sharp intake of breath, Emmy stepped forward, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make. The divide between belief and skepticism, light and dark, had reached its breaking point. The battle was no longer just about faith in Luna, it was a battle for the very soul of the building. And Emmy knew that this was a fight she could not face alone. Emmy stood before the elevator, heart pounding in her chest. The once familiar sound of its machinery was replaced by an eerie silence, a thick tension hanging in the air. The doors were wide open, yet the elevator seemed devoid of life, as though it had been waiting for something. The space inside was dark, with only faint traces of light flickering from above, casting long shadows across the walls. The building felt colder now. The warmth that had once emanated from Luna's presence was replaced by a chill that crept under the skin. Emmy swallowed hard, taking a deep breath as her eyes flickered to the stairs behind her. She felt Luna's presence still close, but now far more distant than before, like a guardian standing at the edge of a precipice, watching and waiting. Her mind raced. The elevator had always been a part of the building, a mechanical servant that many had taken for granted. But now it felt like a portal, something that had opened to reveal a force far beyond their understanding. She could feel the shift in the air, the subtle tension that now clung to the building's every creak and groan. Emmy glanced back up the stairs, feeling Luna's guidance pushing her forward. The image of the glowing white dog flashed in her mind's eye, the protector that had guarded them, kept them safe. But now Emmy understood. Luna was not just a protector. She was a beacon. And her role was not only to guard the building from harm, but to illuminate the darkness that threatened to consume it. With every step toward the elevator, Emmy felt the weight of the past, the tragedy that had unfolded so many years ago, and the growing sense of impending danger. The building, which had once felt like home, now seemed like a battleground where the lines between the living and the dead were becoming increasingly blurred. As she stepped into the elevator, the faintest brush of a breeze swept past her, and the doors closed behind her with a soft mechanical click. The air grew heavier, and the shadows inside seemed to deepen. Emmy's breath caught as she looked around. The elevator was not just a piece of machinery, it was a threshold, a space suspended between worlds, a place where reality and the supernatural collided. She reached out instinctively, pressing the button to ascend, but the elevator did not respond. The lights above flickered once more, casting sharp angles of light and shadow that distorted the walls around her. In that moment, it became clear to Emmy that this was not just an elevator malfunction, it was something much darker. The building groaned beneath her feet as if it were alive, protesting her presence, urging her to leave. A sudden crash echoed through the shaft, and the elevator jerked violently, plunging downward. Emmy's heart skipped a beat as the lights flickered one last time before plunging the space into darkness. A voice, soft but unmistakable, whispered from the shadows, "Emmy." Her breath caught in her throat, and her pulse quickened. The voice wasn't hers. It wasn't human either. It was Luna. But this time, Luna's presence was not comforting. There was an urgency to the voice, a sense of something far more sinister closing in on them. The elevator plunged further, the walls shaking violently, as if something inside the building was fighting against her. The very foundation of the structure seemed to be cracking under the pressure, groaning, with an intensity that made the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. But through it all, Emmy felt Luna's presence, a steady pulse, guiding her forward, urging her to stay strong. "Luna," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What is it? What's coming?" The darkness around her seemed to grow thicker, as if it were alive, wrapping itself around her, pulling her deeper into the unknown. She felt the temperature drop, and her breath turned to mist. The walls of the elevator seemed to close in, and the eerie silence was broken by a low, guttural sound like a growl or a rumble from deep within the earth. The elevator stopped abruptly, and for a moment, everything was still. The oppressive darkness hung around her, suffocating as she stood there waiting for the next move. The walls trembled again, and then the voice came once more, clearer, now filled with an unmistakable warning. "It's not the elevator," Luna's voice echoed in the silence. "It's what's beneath it." Emmy's heart raced as she pieced together Luna's words. Beneath the building, there was something hidden, something that had been buried for years, something that had been waiting. A sense of dread washed over her as she realized that this wasn't just a fight against the physical. It was a battle against something far older, far darker, something that had been lying dormant beneath the building for years, feeding off the fear and confusion of the residents. With a sudden crash, the elevator jolted and the doors slid open to reveal the darkened basement floor. The space was vast and cavernous, stretching out in every direction. The air was thick with the scent of decay and something far more sinister. Shadows flickered across the walls, moving with a life of their own, and Emmy could feel the weight of the presence that lurked within. She stepped out into the darkness, her heart pounding as she moved toward the center of the basement. The echoes of her footsteps were swallowed by the vast space, and the air seemed to grow colder with each step. Luna's presence was stronger now, a steady guiding force that pushed her forward, urging her to uncover the truth. As she moved deeper into the basement, the shadows began to shift. Figures seemed to appear and disappear in the periphery of her vision, figures that were too tall, too distorted to be human. A low, rasping growl rumbled from the depths of the shadows, and Emmy's breath caught in her throat. She was not alone. Then a flash of light illuminated the basement for a brief moment, just long enough for Emmy to catch a glimpse of what lay ahead. The walls of the basement were lined with old rusted pipes. But there in the center of the room stood something far worse, a dark pulsating mass, its shape shifting as it seemed to breathe alive, with an energy that felt wrong. Emmy froze, heart pounding in her chest. It was like nothing she had ever seen before. A creature of shadow and darkness, something that had been dormant for years, but now stirred awakening to its true power. And then she understood. This was the source of the darkness, the evil, that had been festering beneath the building for so long. Luna had been protecting them from this, but now the fight was far more than just spiritual. It was a battle for survival. Emmy stepped forward, her heart steady despite the fear that gripped her. She could feel Luna's presence behind her, a guiding force that would not let her falter. She knew that this fight, this battle against the darkness, had only just begun. The old apartment building felt more like a mausoleum than a home in the days following the events of the elevator's malfunction. Its residents, once divided by doubt and skepticism, now stood united by something far more significant, a shared sense of urgency. They were no longer just witnesses to a supernatural mystery. They were active participants in a story that had been unfolding long before their arrival. A story that now demanded to be understood. Emmy, still shaken from the harrowing night in the basement, found herself drawn to the place she had always felt safest, the red staircase. The once innocent symbol of her childhood had now become the central point of a much larger, darker mystery. Her connection with Luna, once simple and comforting, now carried with it an ominous weight, as if the bond between them was part of something much larger, something far beyond her understanding. It was in this tense atmosphere that Linda, Emmy's mother, found herself sifting through boxes of old dusty materials in the building's forgotten storage room. She had been searching for anything that could explain the mounting events, anything that could bring clarity to the terrifying series of incidents. And then, hidden beneath a stack of old newspapers and forgotten memorabilia, she discovered a small, leather-bound journal. As Linda opened the journal, the faint scent of aged paper filled the air, and the pages creaked with age. The handwriting inside was delicate, precise, and haunting. It belonged to a young girl no older than Emmy, whose words bled with grief and sorrow. Linda's hands trembled as she read, her heart heavy with the weight of the words. The girl's name was Isabel, and she had lived in the very apartment building where Linda now stood long before it had fallen into disrepair. The entries chronicled the life of Isabel and her beloved dog, a white shepherd named Luna. The bond between them was palpable, a connection that transcended the usual human-animal relationship. Luna had been Isabel's protector, her confidant, and her constant companion. The journal told of how Isabel had always been afraid of the elevator, of how Luna would sit by the doors, watching her with intelligent eyes, as if sensing her fear. One fateful day, the elevator broke, and Isabel, only a child, was caught inside. The story that followed was one of unimaginable heartbreak. The elevator plummeted, and Luna, unable to reach Isabel in time, watched helplessly as her best friend was lost. The journal spoke of Luna's frantic attempts to save Isabel, how she had tried in vain to pull the elevator doors open, but it was too late. The last entry was a heart-wrenching declaration of Luna's devotion, I will stay. I will wait for her. Linda's heart shattered as she read these words. The pain of the young girl, the heartbroken dog, and the tragedy that had unfolded in that very building echoed through the pages. It was then that Linda realized the truth. Luna's spirit had never left. She had stayed just as she had promised, waiting for the moment when she could protect others, when she could be more than just a dog. The discovery hit Linda like a wave. She understood now why the elevator had malfunctioned so many times, why Luna had been so insistent on protecting the residents. It wasn't just about the past. It was about the bond between them and the unbreakable connection that tied them all to this place. Luna had been guarding them, not from ghosts, not from the building's age, but from something far worse. The darkness that had been lurking within the walls, a darkness born from years of grief and loss. Linda shared the journal with Emmy and the other residents. Each word a revelation, each page a piece of the puzzle that had eluded them for so long. As they gathered together in the dimly lit lobby, the weight of the truth settled over them like a heavy fog. The elevator, the red staircase, the strange occurrences, all of it, was part of a larger story that had begun long before they had moved in. The residents listened in stunned silence as Linda spoke of Isabel's tragic fate, of Luna's undying loyalty, and of the dark presence that had been awakened by the building's history. The room was heavy with emotion, the air thick with shared grief and understanding. This was no longer just about a haunted apartment complex. It was about love loss and the spirit that refused to be forgotten. But even as they came to understand the depths of Luna's devotion, a new fear crept into their hearts. The journal spoke of Luna's need to protect not just Isabel, but the building itself and those who would come after. It became clear that the darkness that had been awakened by Isabel's death was not simply a lingering spirit. It was a malevolent force, one that had fed off the pain and grief of generations. And now it was stronger than ever. Emmy, sitting silently in the corner, felt Luna's presence beside her, a comforting warmth in the otherwise cold room. She looked at the picture of the white dog hanging on the wall, the same dog who had protected Isabel and now in some way was protecting her. The realization hit her with full force. Luna was more than just a guardian. She was the key to understanding the past, to unlocking the truth behind the building's mystery. As the group gathered around the journal, the sense of connection deepened. They were no longer just tenants in a forgotten building. They were part of a larger story, one that spanned generations, one that tied them together in ways they had never imagined. The red staircase was no longer just a passageway between floors. It was the heart of the building, a place where history, love, and grief intertwined. A place where Luna had watched over them all. The truth was both heartbreaking and redemptive. The red staircase was not just a symbol of the past. It was a symbol of the future, of healing, of protection, and of the love that transcended time. And now the residents knew what they had to do. They had to honor that love. They had to honor Luna. But the journey was far from over. The building, once a place of safety, had become a battleground, a place where light and dark, love and loss would clash. And in the center of it all stood Emmy, with Luna by her side, ready to face whatever came next. As the residents gathered around the dimly lit lobby, a sense of clarity settled over them. The journal Linda had discovered was not just a collection of memories, but the key to understanding the mysteries that had been haunting them all. The weight of the past had been revealed, and with it a new sense of purpose began to form. The building was no longer just an apartment complex. It was a place of intersection between the living and the dead, a place where love and loss had transcended time. Emmy, still holding Luna's painting close, felt the bond between them strengthen. The more she understood about the past, the tragedy, the loyalty, and the endless devotion of Luna, the more her heart ached. She realized that Luna was not just protecting the building. She was protecting everyone who lived within it. The sacrifices that Luna had made, her unwavering presence, were gifts that transcended the boundaries of the physical world. As Linda finished reading aloud from the journal, a silence fell over the group. The weight of the words seemed to hang in the air, and each person felt the gravity of what had been revealed. It was a moment of collective understanding, where the residents were no longer just survivors of a haunting. They were participants in something much larger, something that connected them to the past, to the tragedy that had unfolded here decades ago. But it wasn't just grief and sorrow that filled the room. It was love. The kind of love that had kept Luna bound to this place, watching over every step, every footfall on the red staircase. The spirit of the dog wasn't just an echo of the past, it was a force that continued to shape the present. The story of Isabel and Luna was one of tragedy, yes, but it was also one of enduring love and devotion. It was a story that had been lost in the whispers of time, but now it was being retold in the hearts of the people who lived there. The building had been steeped in sadness, but now it was on the verge of something different, a chance at healing, at redemption not just for the building, but for the spirits that had remained bound here for so long. In the following days, the residents began to make subtle changes. The red staircase was no longer a place of fear, but a place of reverence. Small acts of respect, lighting candles, leaving flowers, offering quiet moments of reflection, became a part of their daily routine. People began to talk openly about Luna, sharing their stories of how they had felt her presence, how they had come to rely on the quiet comfort she offered. Emmy in particular felt the change most deeply. She was no longer just a child caught in the grip of fear. She was a young woman who had experienced something far beyond her years. The love that Luna had shown her, unwavering, constant, had given her a strength she hadn't known she possessed. But with that strength came a new responsibility. Luna had shown her how to protect, how to care for the people she loved. And she knew that she couldn't let the story of the white dog fade into the shadows again. The bond between her and Luna had grown stronger with each passing day. It was as though the more Emmy understood, the more she could feel Luna's spirit guiding her. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind in the stairwell was a reminder that the dog was there, watching over her and the others. The connection was no longer just one of protector and protected. It was a bond forged in love, in loss, and in the shared history of a building that held the weight of both. But as much as the residents had come to understand the spirit of Luna, the building itself held one last secret, a secret that had been buried beneath the weight of years of pain, grief, and loss. And that secret was about to reveal itself. Emmy had spent days poring over the journal, searching for clues, trying to piece together the last fragment of the puzzle. There was one part of the story that didn't quite make sense, the final entry, the last words Isabel had written before the elevator had claimed her life. It was short, almost cryptic. "I'll be waiting for you. You'll find me when the time is right." What did it mean? Was Isabel's spirit still lingering in the building? Was Luna's protection tied to more than just her own devotion to Isabel? One evening, as the sun began to set and the building settled into its usual rhythm, Emmy sat in the stairwell, staring at the wall where Luna's picture had once hung. The faint sound of paws echoed in her mind, and she felt the unmistakable warmth of Luna's presence beside her. Suddenly, the air shifted. It wasn't the usual calmness that she had come to expect. This was different, more urgent. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up as a voice, faint but clear, whispered from the shadows. "It's time." Emmy's heart skipped a beat. She turned slowly, expecting to see Luna's glowing form. But instead, the shadows had shifted, and the faint outline of a young girl appeared in the doorway. It was Isabel. The girl stood there, her face serene but filled with sorrow. Emmy's breath caught in her throat as she realized what was happening. Isabel was no longer trapped in the past. She had returned to finish what Luna had started. The ghostly figure stepped forward, her eyes locking onto Emmy's. "It's time to free us," she whispered, her voice soft but filled with an overwhelming sadness. "Luna cannot protect us forever. She has done her part. Now you must do yours." Emmy nodded, her heart filled with determination. She didn't fully understand what needed to be done, but she knew one thing: she was ready. The red staircase was no longer just a physical passage between floors. It had become a symbol of love, protection, and hope, everything that Luna had fought for, everything that Isabel had died for. And now it was up to Emmy to carry that legacy forward, to help guide the spirits of the past into the light. As Isabel's image faded into the shadows, Luna's presence grew stronger, filling the stairwell with a warmth that cut through the darkness. Emmy knew what she had to do, and with Luna beside her, she felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. The atmosphere in the building had shifted. What had once been a place of quiet tension, fear, and division was now a battleground, a place where belief and skepticism clashed in an unrelenting struggle. The past had been unveiled, the truth laid bare, and the residents were now forced to confront the reality of what they had been living alongside. Some had embraced the changes drawn into the fold by the undeniable evidence of the supernatural. Others, however, remained steadfast in their disbelief, clinging to the rational world they had always known. Among the skeptics were the Martins, a couple that had moved into the third floor just months ago, brimming with confidence and scientific reasoning. They had always dismissed the stories of Luna and the red staircase as nothing more than folklore, a convenient narrative created by the residents to explain the unexplainable. They had laughed off the accounts of strange occurrences, the flickering lights, the shadows in the corners. But after the elevator incident, something in their demeanor began to change. Fear had crept into their hearts, and despite their attempts to suppress it, doubt had taken root. The tension came to a head one fateful evening. The building was alive with whispers, the residents speaking in hushed tones about the latest developments. Emmy's vision of Isabel, the truth behind Luna's spirit, and the growing sense of unity that was slowly overtaking the building. But the Martins were not so easily swayed. They believed they had the answers. And as the community began to gather in the lobby to discuss the next steps, how they could honor Luna and protect the building from whatever darkness had been unleashed, the Martins took matters into their own hands. It started with a simple act of defiance, a challenge to the unity the residents had begun to form. They decided to take down the painting of Luna from its place on the red staircase. The portrait had become a symbol of protection and remembrance for the residents, a silent guardian watching over them. But for the Martins, it was an affront to reason, a reminder of a superstition they couldn't allow to fester. The residents were furious when they learned what had been done. The argument was inevitable. As the Martins stood in front of the removed painting, their faces set in defiance, the tension in the room exploded. People shouted, accusations flew, and voices cracked with frustration. The walls of the building seemed to close in as the clash of beliefs reached a fever pitch. The Martins, unmoved by the stories, insisted that they were doing the right thing. To them, the painting was a symbol of ignorance, a relic of a time when superstition ruled over common sense. They had only acted to protect the building from what they saw as a dangerous myth. But the residents, now united in their understanding of what Luna had meant to them, would not stand by. The truth had been revealed, and it had woven them together in a bond stronger than any disagreement. Emmy stood in the center of the room, her small body radiating the kind of quiet strength that had only come with the understanding she had gained. Her eyes, though wide with emotion, held the steady light of unwavering belief. She stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "You don't understand," she said softly, her voice cutting through the noise. Luna was never just a ghost or a legend. She was a protector. She was here for us just as she was for Isabel. The red staircase. It's not just a place. It's part of something bigger. It's a symbol of everything we've come to believe. Her words hung in the air, and for a moment the room fell silent. The Martins stood unmoving, their expressions unreadable, but their stance softened just a fraction. Emmy continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "If we remove Luna, if we erase the connection we have to her, we risk everything. This place, this building, it's not just made of brick and stone. It's made of memory, of love. And Luna is here in the heart of this building, keeping us safe. You don't have to believe in her, but you need to understand what she means to us." The Martins exchanged a look, their resolve beginning to falter. They had come to this place, determined to root out superstition with logic, but the weight of Emmy's words, the truth of what they had all experienced, was undeniable. Then, as if summoned by the tension that had built up in the room, Luna's presence filled the space. The temperature shifted, and the lights flickered as the walls seemed to hum with an energy too powerful to ignore. The shadows in the corners of the room deepened, and for a brief moment, the Martins' skepticism was replaced by something else, an overwhelming sense of awe. And then, just as Emmy had felt before Luna appeared, her form, not a ghostly figure, but a radiant being, glowing faintly in the dim light. She stood at the foot of the stairs, her eyes filled with an ancient wisdom, her presence undeniable. The air seemed to thrum with the power of her spirit as she stood there, a silent guardian of the building and the residents within it. The Martins at last felt it, the weight of the truth, the undeniable reality of Luna's protection. They could not deny what had been standing before them all along, nor could they ignore the power that Luna's presence held over them. The building was not just haunted by a ghost. It was protected by love, by memory, by something far more profound than they had ever believed. In that moment, the divide between believers and skeptics finally began to close. The energy in the room shifted, and the atmosphere became one of unity, not division. The Martins stepped back, their faces softening, and with a quiet nod, they acknowledged the truth of what had been revealed. The building, the red staircase, Luna, they were all part of something far greater than any of them had initially understood. The confrontation had reached its climax, but there was no victory in defeat, only a deepening respect for the bond they now shared. Emmy, standing tall at the center of it all, felt the strength of Luna's presence behind her. She had become the bridge, the one who brought understanding to a fractured community. And with that, the painting of Luna was returned to its rightful place on the stairwell wall. The act of restoration was symbolic, but it was also a profound statement. The residents of the building had reclaimed their faith, their belief, and their connection to something greater than themselves. The red staircase was no longer just a passageway. It was a symbol of everything they had come to understand, the power of memory, the strength of love, and the unbreakable bond that connected them all. As the painting of Luna was gently placed back in its rightful position on the red staircase, a soft hush fell over the building. It was as if the entire space exhaled a collective sigh of relief. The tension that had been thick and heavy in the air dissipated, leaving behind a profound sense of calm. The building, which had once felt like a prison of uncertainty, now seemed to breathe with a newfound sense of purpose. The red staircase had been restored not just with the return of Luna's image, but with the return of belief, unity, and hope. Emmy stood at the foot of the stairs, her small hands clasped tightly in front of her. She could feel the warmth of Luna's presence like an invisible hand resting gently on her shoulder, guiding her forward. The dog's spirit, once a mere shadow of legend, now stood fully revealed as the embodiment of love, protection, and memory. She had guarded the building and its inhabitants for decades, waiting for the right moment to bring them together. But the journey was not over. Despite the restoration of the painting, despite the newfound sense of unity among the residents, there was still a lingering presence, something dark, something that had been awakened by the truth. Emmy could feel it in the air like a storm brewing just beyond the horizon. Luna's protection, while strong, was not indomitable. The building, with all its love and history, still harbored a malevolent force beneath the surface, one that had fed off the fear and sorrow of generations. It wasn't until the following evening that the darkness made itself known again. The residents had gathered in the common area, some sitting together, others standing in small clusters, talking quietly among themselves. The atmosphere was light, filled with a sense of relief and renewal. The stories of Luna, of Isabel, of the bond that had been formed between the building's past and present were shared over coffee and laughter. But that sense of peace was shattered when the lights flickered once more. It began with a soft hum, barely audible at first, but as the hum grew louder, it became a vibrating pulse that seemed to reverberate through the entire building. The walls shook, the floors creaked underfoot, and a cold, damp chill swept through the hallways, making the air feel thick and oppressive. Emmy's breath hitched as she looked around. She could feel Luna, but it wasn't the same calm, steady presence she had grown used to. This time the sensation was different, more urgent, more intense, as though Luna herself was straining against something far stronger than she had encountered before. And then the air grew still. The quiet was almost deafening. And in that stillness, the walls of the building seemed to pulse with an ancient energy, as if the structure itself was alive, tired, hungry, waiting for something. Emmy's heart raced as she stood, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of movement. And that's when she saw it. A figure dark and shapeless appeared in the doorway just beyond the soft glow of the hallway lights. It was a shadow, an empty void that seemed to absorb the light around it, growing larger with each passing second. The air grew colder, and Emmy's breath came in shallow gasps as the figure stepped forward. Luna's presence intensified a flash of light flickering in the corner of her vision. The white dog appeared at the far end of the hallway, her form now brighter, more distinct than ever before. She was no longer just a spectral figure. She was a force of light radiating warmth and strength. But even as Luna advanced, Emmy felt the power of the darkness pushing back like an unseen tide trying to drown her in its suffocating grip. The group of residents, once united, now stood frozen in fear. Their faces were pale eyes wide with terror as the dark figure advanced. Some of them backed away, but most remained rooted to the spot, paralyzed by the overwhelming force of the presence in the room. Emmy knew she had to act. She couldn't let the darkness win, not after everything they had learned, not after everything they had been through. With a shaky breath, she stepped forward, her eyes locked on Luna's glowing form. She felt the warmth of the dog's spirit flow through her, strengthening her resolve. "Luna?" She whispered, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. "I believe in you. We believe in you." The darkness faltered for a moment, and Emmy's heart skipped a beat. She could feel Luna's strength surge through her, a quiet yet powerful force. The shadows seemed to hesitate as if they were unsure of what to do next. And in that moment, Emmy understood. Luna wasn't just fighting for the building. She was fighting for every soul within it. She was fighting for love, for the bond they had formed, for the hope that still existed even in the face of overwhelming darkness. Emmy stood her ground, her hands trembling but determined. "We are not afraid," she said, her voice ringing out through the stillness. "We are stronger than you. We will not let fear control us." The shadow hesitated again. And with a sudden burst of light, Luna leaped forward, her form becoming a blinding beacon in the darkness. The shadow recoiled as if struck by an unseen force. The building shook once more, but this time it was not the tremor of fear. It was the sound of something being expelled, something dark and dangerous being pushed back into the depths from which it came. The shadow began to dissipate slowly, at first then with increasing speed. As it vanished, the building's atmosphere shifted once again. The air grew warmer, the oppressive weight lifting. The lights flickered back to life, steady and strong, and the cold that had crept into the hallways retreated, replaced by the familiar warmth that had once defined the building. Emmy collapsed to her knees, her body shaking with the aftershock of the ordeal. But she wasn't alone. Luna's presence, now calm and comforting, wrapped around her like a protective shield. The spirit of the white dog was not just a guardian, it was a symbol of everything the building had fought for. It was love, it was memory, it was resilience in the face of darkness. The residents gathered around Emmy, their faces a mix of awe, gratitude, and relief. They had witnessed the truth of Luna's power, and in doing so they had confronted their own fears. The red staircase was no longer just a place of passage, it had become a place of healing. A place where the residents of the building could come together, united in the knowledge that they were no longer alone. The building, once a symbol of isolation and fear, had transformed into a place of strength, of community, and of love. The darkness had been driven away, not through force, but through the unwavering belief that love and memory could overcome anything. And in that moment, as Emmy stood supported by the warmth of Luna's spirit, she knew the battle was over. The red staircase was no longer just a place. It was a symbol of everything they had fought for, the bonds they had forged, the love they had shared, and the protection they had been given. Luna had fulfilled her promise. And the residents, now united in their understanding, knew that they would never forget her. The red staircase was a part of them now, a part of their story, their love, their hope. The following week, the atmosphere in the building had completely shifted. The once tense hallways now hummed with an undercurrent of peace. And the residents, who had once been divided by fear and skepticism, had found a common thread that tied them together. They had confronted the darkness that had haunted their home, and in doing so they had discovered a strength they never knew they had. Emmy, standing at the foot of the red staircase, could feel it too. The familiar weight of Luna's presence filled the space. But this time it wasn't just a quiet guardian watching over them. It was a force of love, protection, and hope that had become a part of the building itself. A bond between the living and the dead, between the past and the present, stronger than any darkness that had ever threatened to consume them. It was time to honor the past and move forward. The residents of the building came together, united by the shared understanding that they had survived something much greater than themselves. A ceremony was planned, one that would serve as both a tribute to Luna's spirit and a memorial to the young girl Isabel, whose tragic fate had set everything into motion. It was to be a day of healing, of remembering, and of letting go of the fear that had gripped the building for so long. Emmy and her mother Linda stood together in the lobby, surrounded by neighbors who had come to share in the moment. Mrs. Agnes, the elderly neighbor whose stories had bridged the gap between generations, was at their side. She had come to represent the past, to ensure that the memories of those who had come before would never be forgotten. The painting of Luna, now protected and restored, was brought forward, carefully placed back in its place on the wall. It had been cleaned, its colors vivid once again, its lines sharp and strong. The image of the white dog, radiant with the light of the spirit, now stood as a permanent fixture in the heart of the building. It was not just a painting. It was a symbol of the unity the building had found, the love that had bridged the divide, and the protection that Luna had provided to all who called this place home. As the group gathered in front of the painting, Linda began to speak. Her voice trembled slightly, but there was a quiet strength behind it. "This building," she said, "has seen much in its time. It has witnessed pain, loss, and fear. But it has also witnessed love. And that love is what has brought us here today. Luna's spirit, Isabel's memory, they have brought us together. And it is through that unity that we find healing." Emmy stood beside her mother, her hand gently resting on the base of the staircase. She looked up at the painting of Luna, her eyes filled with gratitude and understanding. She had always felt Luna's presence, but now it was as if the spirit of the dog had become one with her own. The love Luna had shown was no longer a distant memory. It was a living force woven into the fabric of the building, the stairwell, the hearts of the residents. "Luna protected us," Emmy said softly, her voice steady despite the emotions welling up inside her. "She protected me. And she protected all of us because she believed in us, in the love we share, in the strength we have when we stand together." Her words hung in the air, a soft, reverent silence following them. The residents stood still, reflecting on the journey they had shared, the healing they had experienced. They had come from different walks of life, each carrying their own burdens and fears. But now they were united in a way they had never been before. Mrs. Agnes, standing beside Linda, added, "We cannot change the past, but we can honor it. We can take what we've learned, what we've gained, and carry it forward." Her voice cracked with emotion, and she wiped a tear from her eye. The red staircase was never just a place to walk through, it was a place of memories, a place of love. And it will be that way forever. With those words, the ceremony began. The residents, one by one, placed flowers at the base of the red staircase, each person offering a silent prayer or a memory of their own. The building, once heavy with grief and fear, was now filled with the light of shared love and understanding. As the last flower was placed, a sudden shift in the air occurred. The warmth in the room intensified, and a soft breeze seemed to sweep through the space. The faintest sound of paws echoed in the distance, and for the briefest moment, everyone could feel Luna's presence once more. It was as if the dog, now at peace, was thanking them for honoring her and the memory of Isabel. Emmy looked up the stairs and saw the sunlight filtering through the windows, casting a golden glow across the red staircase. The deep red color of the steps now gleamed, polished by the light of the afternoon sun. It was no longer just a place of passage, it was a place of transformation, a symbol of everything they had been through and everything they had become. The red staircase was not just a stairway, it was a bridge connecting them to the past and to the future. It was a place where love, loss, and protection had coexisted for so long, and now it stood as a beacon of hope for anyone who passed through it. As the ceremony came to an end, the residents of the building stood in a shared moment of quiet reflection. The weight of the past had been lifted, but the future now lay open before them, filled with hope, renewal, and a deep sense of connection. Emmy, standing at the base of the red staircase, felt the warmth of the afternoon sun on her face, and for the first time she realized just how far they had all come. She was no longer just a little girl caught in the middle of something she couldn't understand. She was part of a community that had overcome fear, that had embraced love, and that had united through the trials they had faced. With the painting of Luna restored, and the building once again filled with the love and respect it deserved, Emmy knew that the journey was far from over. This was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that would carry the lessons of the past forward into the future. The building, once a place of uncertainty and fear, had now become a home, a true home where every resident was cherished, every memory honored, and every step taken in love and unity. The red staircase stood as a living testament to that transformation. It was not just a staircase, it was a symbol of everything they had fought for, everything they had come to understand. And as the golden light of the setting sun poured down upon it, Emmy knew that Luna's spirit would always be there, guiding them, protecting them, and reminding them that love could transcend even the darkest of times. Emmy's heart swelled with gratitude. The spirit of the dog that had watched over her had not just protected her. It had shown her the strength of community, the power of love, and the unbreakable bond that connected them all. Luna had been her guide, her protector, and now her legacy would live on in the hearts of everyone who had been touched by her spirit. Linda, standing beside her daughter, placed a hand gently on Emmy's shoulder. "You've grown so much, Emmy," she said softly, her voice filled with pride. "And so has this building. We've all been through something extraordinary, and now we're stronger because of it." Emmy smiled up at her mother, her eyes shining with understanding. "We're stronger together, Mom, and we'll always have Luna with us." The residents began to slowly make their way back to their apartments, some lingering near the staircase, exchanging soft words of gratitude, others lost in their own thoughts. The mood was one of quiet contentment, of resolution, and of a deep sense of peace. They had faced the darkness, and they had emerged stronger, united and full of hope for the future. As the evening settled over the building, the soft glow of the lamps illuminated the red staircase, casting long shadows that stretched across the steps. But now those shadows were not something to fear. They were a reminder of the love that had grown from the darkness. The staircase, once a symbol of fear, had been transformed into a beacon of light and hope. It was a space where memories were honored, where bonds were formed, and where the spirits of the past and present coexisted in harmony. Emmy stood at the top of the stairs, gazing down at the path below. She could feel Luna's presence beside her, a constant reminder that they were never truly alone. The love, the protection, the spirit of the dog that had saved them all, it would never fade. It would live on in the building, in the people, and in the memories they held dear. The building, with all its history and all its pain, had become something beautiful. It had become a home, a place of healing, a place where love and hope would continue to grow long after the sun had set on the day of the ceremony. Emmy knew that Luna's journey had not ended, it had merely taken a new form. And as she walked back down the red staircase, her heart full of warmth, she knew that she too was walking into a future filled with love, light, and the knowledge that no matter what happened, she would always be protected. The journey was far from over. It was just beginning. The camera pulled away, slowly panning across the building, now bathed in the soft glow of twilight. The light danced across the steps of the red staircase, which stood brightly against the fading evening sky. The last rays of the sun kissed the building's facade, casting long ethereal shadows that stretched out across the courtyard. The image of Luna's painting, now safe, now honored, stood proudly against the wall. The red paint of the staircase gleamed rich and vibrant, a testament to the strength of love, memory, and the deep connections formed between the people and the spirit that had protected them all. And as the camera panned up, showing the building's tall silhouette against the darkening sky, the final shot lingered on the staircase, glowing beneath the soft, fading sunlight, as if it were waiting for the next generation to pass through, to honor the past, to keep the memory alive, and to carry forward the lessons of love and healing. The story of the red staircase was not just a memory, it was a living, breathing part of their lives. It would live on in every step taken in every person who walked up or down those stairs. And as the screen slowly faded to black, the words lingered in the air. The journey of love, protection, and healing never truly ends. It continues with every step we take.